Shalom, Israel. This is Sister Kana, and welcome to another segment of YASHAYAH Speaks. And I just want to continue on from where I left in the last segment, which was sisterhood and learning to heal, learning how to heal. So first, I want to give all glory and praise to YASHAYAH Bahashim Yashaya, and just lift up and bless His holy name. And so as you know, first I also want to just, I gave a list of points that I want to hit, and I'll just talk, and and I'm sure that I'll get into these points instead of me trying to stay on one subject, and when certain things lead into something else. So I'll just kind of just start the series like this. I wanted to bring out one of the reasons why I really wanted to do this, and I think it's very important for us to start healing, to start opening up certain dialogues amongst each other, so that we can start to grow together in the spirit together, which is important, because it's rough when you have people at some levels and then you got other people at other levels, and people are just not doing the same thing, and then you're battling situations and demons actually that you was hoping that you got past. And I'll try to explain what I mean, as I go on in the series. And I pray that you really start from the beginning so that you can get full understanding of what I'm trying to say, instead of just coming in on the third series and then assuming the wrong thing of what I'm actually trying to say. But I wanted to say that, in Babylon, the reason why I think it's so important, because one of the things about me that when I was in Babylon, I really didn't like what I was seeing, and I knew that something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't know I was asleep too, but I couldn't put my finger on what was actually wrong. So I would, I just didn't understand, and I knew, like, I had a lot of relationships. I have a big family with a lot of women in my family, so I had, I have a lot of female influence in my life, and so I never had a problem with like having girlfriends and stuff like that, because actually my sisters and I were very close, and then my cousins, we all grew up together, and we are very close, so they're actually like my sisters as well. So I never really, and then their friends would become my friends, and my friends would become their friends. So we were always just a lot of us, So I never really had problems with, having friends or dealing with women or things, but I was always paying attention. And I noticed that, a lot of things would go on with us as women. And then there was also the outside influences that people would say, oh, women can't get along, they never can, get along, and especially when it comes to a man, and, all these things. And at the time, I didn't understand, waking up to the truth and understanding that all the sorcery and all the things that they are using against our people, and even the curses that we are under. And that plays a huge part in it, because the Most High put us in this condition because of disobedience. So basically, everything that you see us going through is due to the curses that the Most High put on us. And so we can't even, alleviate that fact. So it was allowed that we would go into this condition, that they would be able to use this sorcery on us and all these things, But this is what the outcome is, and this is why our sisters are going through the things that they're going through. And again, I want to say, and this is why I feel so strongly about addressing the issue, because I noticed that something was wrong even when I was in Babylon. And I would kind of just hide myself a lot of times for people, because I didn't want to deal with the attacks and, deal with some of the things that I felt like I always had to deal with when it comes to different relationships. And I'm just talking about just basic things like cattiness and jealousy and maliciousness and, always having an attitude, bad attitudes with sisters, always fighting and, just basically can't get along, and things have to go their way because we were brought up doing all the work. Usually the mother will train the daughter to do the banking, to do the housework, to run the errands. So we were always the one in charge, of things. So naturally, when as women become adults and they handle things, if things don't go their way, they have a problem with it. And that would be always, certain situations that I would kind of notice. It's like, if it's not their way, there's a problem. So once I woke up to the truth and I understood, and that's why I packed my stuff. I was ready to go because I had already been at a level of it's hard for me to deal with this, and the Most High had been dealing with me early on before I even woke up to the truth. So I knew about protecting myself and protecting my spirit, and there were certain things that I was already doing before I even woke up to the truth, which was like I woke up into the truth in 2008, but prior to that, I hadn't watched TV from 5.5 to 6 years. I had literally unplugged my TV. Excuse me. I literally unplugged my TV out of the wall, both TV. I had a big screen TV in my living room and a smaller TV in my bedroom, and I just unplugged them both. And for 6 years, I hadn't watched TV at all. And also, some things, I was also doing my own music. So I wasn't listening to regular music so much because I was actually in the studio, like creating and working with different producers, working on my own music. So I was also kind of not doing that, like listening to music so heavily. I was creating my own music at the time. And also, I hadn't eaten red meat for years. Like for 20 years, I wouldn't eat any red meat. I never ate pork, so that wasn't an issue. But red meat, as far as any kind of beef or lamb or any kind of thing, I didn't eat, all for 20 years. And I actually didn't start eating red meat until I went to Egypt. And because I used to see the meat just, the live cattle there slaughtered, and it was fresh, and I just was like, wow, I want some of that. So that's when I actually started eating meat, in which I still eat meat because I never ate it all my life. So I get to enjoy it now, not even understanding what the sorceries that they were praying over the food and doing all kind of sorceries. I had no idea about that. So I like to believe that the Most High and the Holy Spirit was working with me even then, because I wasn't subjected to none of those things. Also, I had been celibate for a long time as well in my life. So about the time I woke up to the truth, it had also been like 5 or 6 years that I had been celibate. So I wasn't dealing with fornication and dealing with all these kind of issues that a lot of our people was dealing with. Was in a relationship like in 2002, and I had vowed that after this relationship, and if it didn't work, that I was just going to shut down, because I kind of knew something was wrong, that people weren't just acting right. Relationship wasn't working. People were fighting. People getting divorced. There was all kind of diseases. People had AIDS and syphilis and herpes and this and that. So I just was like, I'm not doing this no more. So I'm saying this to say that there was a level of spiritual cleanness or cleansing that I was going through even before I woke up to the truth. And I wanted to equate that to the Most High, and the Holy Spirit, was working with me even then. And to the point where I even started noticing things, maybe in like 2005, I started noticing things about operating in the spirit. And I could actually, recognize certain spirits on people, just not even understanding what I was doing. But now I do know. But at that time, I didn't know, but I was just like knew to stay away from certain people, and I was always protecting myself like in certain ways. And these are some of the things that I'll start to share with you as we go on. But I just wanted to give this information so that, people can understand a little bit, and why I'm, even stepping out like this and speaking on relationships and things. I believe that this is something that the Most High had for me before, because I used to always I was single for most of my life, and I had, 1 or 2 relationships within, but I was always the girlfriend or the friend or the sister that people would come to about advice. And I used to always believe the same thing most people believe, like, why go to your single girlfriend about advice about your relationship, about your marriage. I really didn't understand it, but the thing with me, I believe that why they would come to me is because I would try to tell them things in righteousness. I don't believe in divorce. I don't believe in divorce. I believe marriage is very important, and I believe that the woman should submit to her husband, and that I believe because I believe the Bible, and I was always like into church. So those are some of the things that I just believed, and so when I would talk to my friends, they would normally come into me because they was gonna break up with their boyfriends or husbands or get divorced. They wanted to leave and stuff, and I was always the one to talk them out of it. And I started to believe that they don't really want to like divorce their husband. They really needed somebody to talk them out of it. And I had one friend who was always kicking out her husband, always putting him out, always putting him out. And I used to just have to tell her, why are you doing that? That's so, dysfunctional to your relationship, and try to talk with her about these kind of things, and not really even understanding, what I was doing. But I noticed that they all would come to me, my sisters, my cousins, and always talk to me about relationships. So I always knew in the back of my mind that this is something that I could do because of how I was doing it, and without even realizing that I was doing it. So I just wanted to put that and say that to people because I know I'm going to get a lot of brothers and sisters saying things about, how you're going to listen to someone who's single. But if I think righteousness is righteousness, and if you come in and you're speaking, coming from the word and coming in truth and coming in righteousness, it can't be disputed and it can't be denied. And so that's the things I wanted to focus on. And as I start to go into these segments, you'll understand why. So I wanted to kind of go into the curses that were placed upon us, and one was in Genesis when the Most High put the curse on Eve for listening to the serpent and being deceived. And the curse is saying that basically that she will always be in subjection to her husband. And a lot of women feel like that's a curse, and that now that we waking up to the truth, that this should not apply anymore. And what I wanted to say about this is, well, technically we're still under the curse. We will not be delivered or free from it until Christ returns. So any thought of like now things will be any different, we will have to wait until Christ comes, and these curses are literally off of us. And Christ is our King, and He will set the order and the stage of how what laws will be set and be put in place, and that basically He gave us through the scriptures a guideline of how we are to conduct ourselves and how we are to what we are to expect from each other and how we should interact with each other. So I just wanted to kind of like go into that, and I'm already at 13 minutes, so I'm gonna have to start fresh with the next video. Just going into the curses and going into the scriptures. Okay, so stay with me, and hopefully we can get some edification through this. And thanks for watching, and keep watching. And just say praise YASHAYAH.